Before the stars learned our names, men already carried lasguns into the dark. And when the stars finally gutter out, when the last world falls and the Emperor's light fades, there will still be a soldier somewhere, standing watch in the darkness, refusing to yield. In the quiet spaces between wars, the Guard lives in moments too small for history to record. A Valhallan sergeant teaches a replacement how to wrap foot bindings properly, the way his father taught him, the way his father's father learned in trenches on their frozen homeworld. "You wrap it wrong," he says, his accent thick and patient. "You lose toes. You lose toes, you can't march. You can't march, you're dead." The replacement listens, grateful, and will remember this kindness when the sergeant falls 3 weeks later. A Cadian corporal shares his last low stick with a Catachan scout, both of them leaning against a burned-out chimera under a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. They don't speak the same dialect. Their worlds are nothing alike. But they are both tired, both far from home, and the silence between them is comfortable. The low stick glows softly in the dark. A Steel Legion crew names their Leman Russ Ironsides, after the captain's childhood pet, a grox that used to follow her around the family farm before the recruiters came. They paint the name on the barrel in careful yellow letters. The tank will be destroyed in 4 months, but the crew will remember it fondly, and the survivors will name their next tank Ironsides 2, in honor of what was lost. These are not the moments that win wars, but they are the moments that make the war bearable. Let us speak of those who lead, who carry not just their own burden, but the burden of every soldier under their command. The company commander, Captain Gerald Santine, has been with the Mordian 44th for 12 years. He is 34 standard years old and looks 50. The lines around his eyes are carved by 1,000 decisions, each one carrying the weight of lives. He knows the names of every soldier in his company, all 137 of them. He knows which ones have families, which ones are running from something, which ones joined for glory and which for survival. When he writes condolence letters, and he writes them all himself, refuses to let the regimental scribe do it, he includes specific details. How they died, what they were good at, a moment when they made him proud. He does not sleep well. In his dreams he sees the faces of the ones he failed to bring home. But every morning he rises, he inspects the line, he speaks with his sergeants, his lieutenants, he makes plans, issues orders, and steps into another day of keeping his people alive for just a little longer. The platoon sergeant, Sergeant Mara Cross, was promoted because everyone above her died. She didn't want command. She'd been happy as a squad leader, responsible for 9 people instead of 40. But the Ork assault on the Eastern Ridge had been brutal, and when the smoke cleared, she was the ranking non-commissioned officer. So she learned. She made mistakes, and soldiers died, and she learned from those mistakes. She became harder, sharper, more careful. She learned to read terrain, to anticipate enemy movements, to know when to advance and when to dig in. She learned to project confidence even when she was terrified, because her soldiers needed to believe that someone knew what they were doing. She keeps a small journal hidden in her pack. In it, she writes the names of the dead, not their ranks or serial numbers, just their names, and one thing she remembers about each of them. Trooper Hendricks, who could fix anything. Corporal Yang, who hummed while he worked. Private Talos, who'd been with her since basic training. She doesn't know why she does this. Sentiment is dangerous in the Guard, but she does it anyway, because someone should remember. The Lord Commander. Lord Commander Militant Hessa Rain commands 3 million soldiers across an entire sector. She stands in the command center of a battle barge in high orbit, looking at hololithic displays showing 40 different war zones. Each glowing icon represents thousands of lives. With a word, she can redirect entire armies, shift the course of campaigns, condemn worlds to abandonment, or commit millions to their defense. She makes these decisions without hesitation, because hesitation kills. But late at night, in her private quarters, she permits herself one small weakness. She keeps a bottle of Tanith whiskey, a gift from a now-dead colonel, and pours exactly 1 glass. She drinks it slowly, letting herself feel the weight of what she carries. Tomorrow, she will make more decisions. More people will die because of her orders. More worlds will burn or be saved. The war will continue, as it always has, as it always will. But for this moment, this single glass in the darkness, she allows herself to be human. Every regiment has its traditions, its small ceremonies that bind soldiers together and connect them to something larger than themselves. The Mordians conduct formal inspections before battle, officers checking every soldier's uniform with meticulous care. It seems absurd, polishing buttons when you're about to die, but it's not about vanity. It's about discipline, about maintaining civilization even in the face of chaos. When your world is falling apart, the ability to stand in perfect formation, uniform immaculate, is a kind of victory. The Valhallans sing old songs from their frozen homeworld, ballads about ice storms and lost loves and warriors who died well. The melodies are mournful, beautiful, and when a whole company sings together in the dark, the sound can carry for miles. The enemy hears it and knows the Valhallans are still there, still fighting, still unbroken. And knows the Valhallans are still there, still fighting, still unbroken. The Kriegers conduct death lotteries. When a particularly dangerous mission is assigned, when volunteers are needed for what is certainly a suicide run, they draw lots. It is considered an honor to be chosen, a chance to fulfill the purpose they were born for. Those selected prepare in silence, check their equipment one final time, and march toward death with something approaching peace. The Catechans hold survival competitions. Between battles, squads compete in tests of strength, endurance, and fieldcraft. Knife-throwing contests, wrestling matches, races through hostile terrain. It keeps them sharp, but it also reminds them of home, of the death world that forged them. To a Catecan, a little danger is comforting. The Tanith hold remembrance ceremonies for their lost world. Tanith is gone, virus-bombed into lifelessness during the Sabbat World's crusade, but the survivors gather on the anniversary of its destruction and speak the names of places that no longer exist. The Nalwood forests, the Doran Mountains, the city of Tanith Magna. They speak these names to keep them alive, to prove that their world meant something, that it cannot be completely erased while someone still remembers. The Imperial Guard fights everything the galaxy can throw at humanity, and the galaxy is inventive in its cruelties. Against the Orks. The Greenskins are war incarnate. They live for fighting, grow stronger through violence, and reproduce through spores scattered in their wake. An Ork infestation is nearly impossible to fully eradicate. Kill 100 and 200 will grow from the ground next year. Fighting Orks means facing an enemy that has no fear, no doubt, no concept of retreat. They charge through artillery fire, laughing. They build weapons from scrap that by all rights shouldn't function but somehow do. They pile bodies on the wire and climb over their own dead without hesitation. The Guard wins against Orks through discipline, firepower, and attrition. You don't break an Ork horde. You grind it down, gun it down, bury it under so much fire that even their inhuman resilience fails. And then you burn the corpses and scorched earth the battlefield, praying you got all the spores. The Great Devourer comes from outside the galaxy, an endless swarm of bioforms engineered for killing and consuming. The Tyranids don't conquer, they devour. Every world they take is stripped to bedrock, every living thing converted into biomass to fuel the next wave. Fighting Tyranids is fighting an avalanche. They come in numbers that blot out the sky, gaunts that move like a chittering carpet of claws and teeth, warriors that shrug off lasgun fire, carnifexes like living tanks, and behind them, the hive mind, coordinating millions of bioforms within human intelligence. The Guard can't match their numbers, can't match their adaptability, but they can slow them, channel them, buy time for worlds to evacuate. Every hour the Guard holds is another million refugees who might reach the transports. Every day is another world saved from immediate consumption. It's never enough, it's never fast enough. But they try anyway. The ruinous powers corrupt and twist, turning humanity against itself. Cultists, Traitor Guard, Chaos Space Marines, all of them spreading madness and damnation in their wake. This is the enemy that terrifies the commissariat most, because it can spread through thought, through belief, through the simple despair of soldiers who have seen too much. A whisper in the dark, a promise of power, a moment of weakness, and a soldier is lost. Fighting chaos means fighting your own doubts. It means shooting people who were your brothers yesterday. It means burning entire populations because the taint cannot be allowed to spread. It means standing firm in your faith, even when your faith feels hollow, because the moment you doubt, the moment you question, you become vulnerable. The Guard stands against chaos through faith, through fear, through the Commissar's bolt pistol pressed against the back of your head. Not gentle, not kind, but necessary, in a galaxy where the alternative is worse than death. Against the Necrons. The ancient machines rise from tomb worlds, skeletal warriors of living metal who have slept for 60 million years. They are implacable, unkillable by conventional means, armed with weapons that unmake matter itself. The Guard cannot destroy Necrons, not really. A Gauss flare reduces flesh and bone to constituent atoms. A war scythe passes through armor like it isn't there. And when you do manage to destroy a warrior, it phases out, teleporting back to its tomb to regenerate. But the Guard can delay them, can make them work for every inch, can force them to deploy their heavier forces, their scarabs and wraiths and monoliths, buying time for evacuations or for more suitable forces. Space Marines, perhaps, or Imperial Knights, to arrive. It is a holding action at best, but that's what the Guard does, holds the line. Beyond the lasgun and flak armor, the Guard relies on 1,000 pieces of equipment, each one a potential lifeline or liability. Voxcaster's communication equipment, bulky backpack units carried by specialists. In the chaos of battle, coordination is everything, and the Voxcaster allows officers to direct fire, call for support, and maintain unit cohesion. But they're also targets. Enemy snipers prioritize Vox operators, knowing that killing them disrupts command and control. A good Vox operator learns to stay low, to keep moving, to never stand near the officer for too long. Entrenching tools. The simple shovel, often overlooked, is one of the Guard's most important tools. Dig in, and you increase your survival rate by orders of magnitude. A proper trench can stop small arms fire, provide cover from artillery fragments, and offer some protection from the elements. Veterans know this. Replacements learn it quickly or die. The first thing you do when you reach a position is dig. Dig until your hands bleed, dig until the earth is over your head, dig until you have a firing step and drainage channels and overlapping fields of fire. The shovel has saved more guardsmen than the lasgun ever has. Auspex and surveyor equipment. The tech specialists carry sensor arrays, scanning for enemy movement, detecting thermal signatures, identifying targets for artillery. It's finicky equipment, prone to interference, but when it works, it can mean the difference between an ambush and a prepared defense. Medical supplies. Every guardsman carries a basic medikit, bandages, counterseptic, a stim injector for emergencies. It's usually not enough. Most injuries that don't kill you immediately require proper medical attention. Synth skin for burns, blood replacement for hemorrhaging, surgical intervention for internal injuries. The medics do what they can, but in heavy fighting, they're always understaffed, undersupplied, overwhelmed. Triage becomes everything, and sometimes the morphia is the only kindness you can offer. Dog tags. 2 metal plates on a chain, stamped with name, serial number, blood type, and regimental designation. When a soldier dies, one plate stays with the body for identification. The other is collected by the unit for records. Sometimes when a body can't be recovered, when someone is obliterated by artillery or consumed by Tyranids or lost in a collapsing building, the plates are all that remain. A name on metal, proof that someone existed, that they mattered. The Guard does not fight alone. Regimental support staff. For every soldier on the front line, there are dozens behind the lines keeping the war machine running. Quartermasters managing supplies, tech priests maintaining equipment, cooks preparing rations, clerks maintaining records, drivers moving supplies forward, engineers building fortifications and repairing bridges. They don't carry lasguns into battle, but they're essential. An army without logistics is just an armed mob, and the Imperium has learned this lesson through millennia of warfare. Priests. The ecclesiarchy sends its missionaries of the imperial creed into every regiment. They lead prayers before battle, offer last rites to the dying, and preach the emperor's divinity to soldiers who need something to believe in. Some are sincere, true believers who genuinely care for their flock. Others are politicians or zealots, more concerned with rooting out heresy than tending to souls. But even the worst of them serves a purpose, giving soldiers a framework to make sense of the horror, a reason to fight beyond simple survival. Sanctioned psychers. The Imperium doesn't trust psykers. How could it, when unsanctioned psykers can become doorways for daemons, when a single mistake can doom an entire world? But psykers are also necessary, for communication across vast distances, for detecting warp taint, for providing limited precognitive insights. The sanctioned psykers assigned to guard regiments are soul-bound, their connection to the warp controlled through agonizing rituals. They are often feared by the soldiers they serve alongside, given a wide berth, treated with suspicion. But when the enemy is closing and a well-placed psychic blast breaks their advance, when a telepathic warning prevents an ambush, the guardsmen remember why psykers are tolerated. Necessary evils, in a universe that deals only in necessary evils, why psykers are tolerated. Necessary evils, in a universe that deals only in necessary evils. Commissars, we have spoken of them before, but they deserve deeper consideration. The Commissariat exists to enforce discipline, to prevent cowardice, to execute traitors and heretics. They are feared, and rightly so. A commissar has the authority to summarily execute anyone from private to colonel, and that authority is exercised with regularity. But good commissars, and they do exist, understand that fear alone doesn't win wars. They lead from the front, inspiring through example. They know when to shoot a coward, and when to understand that a man breaking under impossible strain isn't a traitor, just human. They care for their soldiers in their own stern way, because dead heroes are less useful than living veterans. The relationship between commissars and the regiments they serve is complex. Some commissars become beloved, respected leaders. Others last mere days before an accident in combat. It depends on the commissar, on the regiment, on 100 factors that can't be easily predicted. But they are part of the Guard, as much as the soldiers themselves, and they carry their own burdens. The Imperium spans 1,000,000 worlds, and the Guard defends them all. Hive worlds, where billions live in towering cities, where the manufactorums never stop producing, and the gangs in the Underhive are nearly as dangerous as off-world invaders. Agri-worlds, where vast fields stretch to the horizon, where food is grown to feed 1,000 other planets, where the people are simple and the defense is usually thin, making them tempting targets. Forge worlds, where the Adeptus Mechanicus tends to ancient machines, where the atmosphere is toxic, and the tech priests barely acknowledge the guard regiments stationed to protect them. Shrine worlds, where pilgrims come in billions to walk in the footsteps of saints, where the ecclesiarchy holds supreme power, where the Guard protects not industry or resources, but faith itself. Death worlds like Catachan and Fenris, where simply surviving is an achievement, where the wildlife is more dangerous than most enemies, where every generation produces soldiers of exceptional skill, because those who can't fight don't live to adulthood. Cemetery worlds, where the honored dead of the Imperium are interred in vast mausoleums, where guardsmen who fell 1,000 years ago rest alongside those who died yesterday, and countless others. Mining worlds, pleasure worlds, research stations, naval bases, penal colonies, each one unique, each one potentially a battlefield. The Guard fights for all of them. Not because they're all worth saving, some aren't by any reasonable measure, but because the Imperium cannot afford to lose any world without extracting the highest possible price from the enemy. Let us speak honestly now about the cost. The Imperial Guard suffers casualties that would break any other force. On some worlds, in some campaigns, the attrition rate exceeds 90%. Entire regiments are destroyed, their names struck from the rolls, their colors retired or passed to newly raised units that have no connection to the veterans who earned them. The Sabbat World's crusade lasted decades and consumed hundreds of regiments. The Armageddon Wars saw billions die across 3 separate invasions. The defense of Cadia, before its fall, ground through generation after generation of soldiers, their entire lives spent in a war that started before they were born and continued after they died. Ecclesiarchy holds supreme power, where the Guard protects not industry or resources, but faith itself. Death worlds like Catachan and Fenris, where simply surviving is an achievement, where the wildlife is more dangerous than most enemies, where every generation produces soldiers of exceptional skill, because those who can't fight don't live to adulthood. Cemetery worlds, where the honored dead of the Imperium are interred in vast mausoleums, where guardsmen who fell 1,000 years ago rest alongside those who died yesterday, and countless others. Mining worlds, pleasure worlds, research stations, naval bases, penal colonies, each one unique, each one potentially a battlefield. The Guard fights for all of them. Not because they're all worth saving, some aren't by any reasonable measure, but because the Imperium cannot afford to lose any world without extracting the highest possible price from the enemy. Let us speak honestly now about the cost. The Imperial Guard suffers casualties that would break any other force. On some worlds, in some campaigns, the attrition rate exceeds 90%. Entire regiments are destroyed, their names struck from the rolls, their colors retired or passed to newly raised units that have no connection to the veterans who earned them. The Sabbat World's crusade lasted decades and consumed hundreds of regiments. The Armageddon Wars saw billions die across 3 separate invasions. The defense of Cadia, before its fall, ground through generation after generation of soldiers, their entire lives spent in a war that started before they were born and continued after they died. On Vrax, the siege lasted 17 years. 14 million guardsmen died, taking a single world back from heretics. Think about that number for a moment. 14 million. More than the population of some civilized worlds, all dead for one planet. And at the end, Vrax was a radioactive wasteland, barely worth the effort of reclaiming. But they couldn't leave it in enemy hands, so they paid the price. This is what the Imperium demands. This is what the Guard provides. But there are victories too. Small ones, perhaps, measured against the scale of the galaxy, but precious to those who achieve them. A squad holds a bridge for 3 days against endless enemy assaults, buying time for a civilian evacuation. When relief finally arrives, only 2 squad members are still alive, but the civilians are safe. 10,000 people who would have died live. The squad is awarded the Medallion Crimson, though no one will remember their names a year later. A tank crew, surrounded and cut off, manages to fight its way back to friendly lines, destroying 6 enemy vehicles in the process. The tank is a wreck, barely mobile, but the crew survives. They're given 3 days rest, a ration of real alcohol instead of the synthetic stuff, and then assigned a new tank. A regiment, battered and reduced to half strength, is rotated off the front lines for refit. The survivors get a week in a rear area camp, with hot food and showers and cots instead of trenches. Some of them cry when they realize they're actually temporarily safe. Then they clean their equipment, train the replacements, and prepare to go back. A medic saves 11 wounded in a single day, working under fire, dragging soldiers from no man's land while mortars fall around him. He's hit twice but keeps working. When asked about it later, he just shrugs. They needed help. He says, as if that explains everything. Perhaps it does. These victories won't change the course of the war. They won't be recorded in the great histories, but they matter. To the people saved, to the families who will receive letters instead of death notices, to the soldiers who see that even in this nightmare, courage still means something. And so the vigil continues. Across the galaxy, at this very moment, millions of guardsmen stand watch. In trenches on frozen worlds, in observation towers on jungle moons, in bunkers on fortress worlds, in the cramped corridors of void stations, they scan the horizon for enemy movement. They clean their weapons for the 100th time. They write letters that may never be sent. They share rations and tell stories and try not to think about tomorrow. Some of them will live to see old age, a rare blessing in the Guard. Most will not. But for now, in this moment, they are alive. They are standing their post. They are doing their duty. And perhaps that's all anyone can ask. Perhaps that's everything. There is a prayer spoken in the Imperial Guard, unofficial, passed down from soldier to soldier, never appearing in any regimental manual or ecclesiarchy text. It goes like this: Emperor, we are not heroes. We are not your angels, clad in gold and glory. We are dust and blood and fear. We are the ones who hold the line when there is no one else. We do not ask for victory. We know our place too well for that. We ask only this: when we fall, let it mean something. Let the line hold a little longer. Let someone somewhere live to see morning because we stood here. That is all. That is enough. Sleep now. Let the weight of their vigil settle gently over you. Let the names of distant regiments, Cadian, Catacon, Krieg, Valhallan, all the others, become a soft litany carrying you toward rest. The Guard stands watch tonight. They always have. They always will. And in the spaces between the stars, in trenches dug in alien soil, on worlds whose names you will never learn, ordinary men and women hold last guns in tired hands and face the darkness one more time. Not because they are fearless, not because they are certain of victory, but because someone must. And they have chosen, or been chosen, or simply found themselves in this place at this time, and so they stand. The Emperor protects, they say. Perhaps he does. Perhaps he doesn't. Either way, the Guard endures. Before the stars learned our names, men already carried lasguns into the dark. And after everything ends, after the last world falls silent and the final light fades, there will still be an echo, a memory of defiance, of ordinary courage, of humanity refusing to yield. That echo is the Guard. That echo is enough. Rest now, soldier. Your watch is ended, for tonight. Others stand in your place. The line holds. Sleep. Long before the Imperium painted its Aquila across 1,000,000 worlds, before the Emperor walked among the throne rooms of Terra, there were soldiers. Not demigods in ceramite, not gene-forged warriors bearing the thunder of ancient science. Just men and women with steel in their hands and dust on their boots, marching toward horizons they would never see again. This is their story. It is not a story of glory, though glory sometimes found them. It is not a story of victory, though they won 10,000 battles. It is a story of endurance, of standing when standing was all that remained. Close your eyes now, and let the weight of it settle gently over you like an old coat, worn thin by centuries. In the beginning, there was only Terra. Not the jewel it had been in the golden age of humanity's childhood, but Terra the broken, Terra the poisoned, Terra wrapped in the smoke of techno, and in the spaces between the stars, in trenches dug in alien soil, on worlds whose names you will never learn. Ordinary men and women hold last guns in tired hands and face the darkness one more time. Not because they are fearless, not because they are certain of victory, but because someone must. And they have chosen, or been chosen, or simply found themselves in this place at this time, and so they stand. The Emperor protects, they say. Perhaps he does. Perhaps he doesn't. Either way, the Guard endures. Before the stars learned our names, men already carried lasguns into the dark. And after everything ends, after the last world falls silent and the final light fades, there will still be an echo, a memory of defiance, of ordinary courage, of humanity refusing to yield. That echo is the Guard. That echo is enough. Rest now, soldier. Your watch is ended, for tonight. Others stand in your place. The line holds. Sleep. Long before the Imperium painted its Aquila across 1,000,000 worlds, before the Emperor walked among the throne rooms of Terra, there were soldiers. Not demigods in ceramite, not gene-forged warriors bearing the thunder of ancient science. Just men and women with steel in their hands and dust on their boots, marching toward horizons they would never see again. This is their story. It is not a story of glory, though glory sometimes found them. It is not a story of victory, though they won 10,000 battles. It is a story of endurance, of standing when standing was all that remained. Close your eyes now, and let the weight of it settle gently over you like an old coat, worn thin by centuries. In the beginning, there was only Terra. Not the jewel it had been in the golden age of humanity's childhood, but Terra the broken, Terra the poisoned, Terra wrapped in the smoke of techno, barbarism, and warlord kingdoms. The planet had forgotten itself. Its oceans had turned to toxic sludge, its skies choked with the ash of industry and war. Across its scarred surface, petty tyrants ruled from fortresses of rust and bone, and humanity, fractured, frightened, fought itself in the ruins of what it had once been. But in the Himalaysian peaks, something stirred. A man, or perhaps more than a man. A figure who had walked through all the long ages of human history, wearing 1,000 faces, speaking 1,000 names. Now in this darkest hour, he emerged with a singular purpose, to unite Terra, and from Terra, to reclaim the stars. He called himself the Emperor. His first soldiers were not grand. They were the survivors of a desperate age, men and women who had known nothing but war, who had grown up in the shadow of nuclear fire and genetic plagues. They wore scavenged armor, carried weapons cobbled together from pre-Age of Strife technology. They were the Thunder Warriors, giants among men, gene-forged for a single purpose: conquest. Brutal, unstoppable, magnificent in their terrible simplicity. But the Thunder Warriors were not meant to last. They were tools for a specific war, the Unification Wars, and when that war ended, they would fade like all weapons do when the battle is won. The Emperor knew this. Perhaps they knew it too. Alongside them marched something more enduring: the mortal regiments of the Unification. These were the precursors to everything that would come after. The First Imperial Army. Men and women in layered armor, carrying autoguns and laslocks, organized into cohorts and battalions with names that history would forget, but which meant everything to those who bore them. The Pan-Pacific collectives shattered legions, absorbed and reformed. The warriors of the Indonesic bloc, whose resistance had been legendary, and whose integration into unity of techno had been bought with rivers of blood. The Nordafric conclaves, the Ursh Federation's remnants, the armies of 100 kingdoms that bent knee or broke. They fought through the ruins of old cities, through radioactive wastelands, through gene cults and cyber horrors. They fought for 30 years, and when it was done, Terra was won. And they were still standing. With Terra unified, the Emperor looked upward. The stars had been humanity's birthright once, and the stars would be humanity's again. But the galaxy had changed in the long night of old night, when warp storms had isolated human worlds for millennia, letting them twist into strange shapes, fall to xenos predation, or collapse into barbarism. 10,000 years of darkness had passed. Now came the light. The Emperor created his Legiones Astartes, the Space Marines, demigods of war, each worth 100 mortal soldiers. But the galaxy is vast, and even gods need armies. The Imperial Army was born. Not yet the Astra Militarum, not yet the Imperial Guard, simply the army, hundreds of millions strong, drawn from Terra and the first compliant worlds of the Crusade. They marched in the wake of the legions, or sometimes ahead of them, carrying the Imperium's banner to worlds that had never heard the Emperor's name. Picture them now if you can. Picture the troop ships, vast and slow, their bellies filled with men and women from 1,000 different regiments. Some wore the gray fatigues of Terran regiments, their armor heavy and baroque. Others came from newly compliant worlds, Chthonia's gangers, Fenris's ice warriors, the knightly houses of distant feudal worlds. They carried a bewildering array of weapons. Lasguns, yes, but also solid slug rifles, plasma guns scavenged from the Dark Age, flamers and grenade launchers and heavy stubbers. Their uniforms varied wildly, their tactics even more so. But they all shared something, a belief perhaps. Then came the wound. It began on Istvan III, a name that would echo through the millennia like the tolling of a funeral bell. The Warmaster Horus, greatest of the Emperor's sons, turned against his father, and with him turned half the legions, half the army, half the Imperium. The Horus Heresy. It is difficult even now to speak of it softly, but we must try, because this is where the Imperial Guard was truly born. Not in law or edict, but in blood and betrayal. In the moment when billions of soldiers had to choose which side of history they would stand on. The army fractured. Entire regiments went over to Horus, convinced by their legions, by promises of a better Imperium, by the charisma of the Warmaster himself. Others remained loyal, though the legions they had fought beside now turned their guns on them. Brother fought brother. Soldiers who had stood side by side on Ulanor, who had shared rations in the trenches of 100 wars, now faced each other across burning battlefields. On Istvan V, the drop site massacre, loyalist forces were annihilated. On Kalth, the word-bearers betrayed the Ultramarines and the army regiments with them. On Prospero, the Space Wolves burned Magnus's world and the army helped them do it, not understanding the deeper tragedy unfolding. And then the war came to Terra. The siege of Terra was the greatest battle humanity had ever fought or ever would fight. The traitor legions, backed by the dark gods of the warp itself, descended upon the throne world. The loyalists dug in, and caught between them, filling the trenches and the walls and the gun emplacements, were the soldiers of the army. They held the Lion's Gate spaceport against impossible odds. They fought in the ruins of the Imperial Palace, in hab blocks turned to fortresses, in the streets they had once walked as children. They faced corrupted space marines, demonic engines, traitor titans, and the howling madness of the warp itself made manifest. And they held. Not forever, not without terrible cost. but long enough. Long enough for the Emperor to teleport aboard the War Master's flagship, long enough for the final confrontation, long enough for Horus to die and the traitors to flee and the Imperium to survive, broken but undefeated. When it was over, when the smoke cleared and the dead were counted, the Emperor was entombed upon the golden throne, more dead than alive. The Imperium had survived, but it was a different thing now. Scarred, paranoid, harder. And the army became the Astra Militarum. The Imperial Guard, the reorganization, was a practical one, born of painful lessons. The legions had proved too powerful, too prone to corruption when a single commander could turn them. They were broken into chapters, scattered across the galaxy. And the army, too, was reformed. No longer would a single commander control vast hosts. No longer would regiments fight alongside the same Space Marine forces for decades, risking the bonds that had enabled betrayal. Now regiments would be raised from individual worlds, trained in their own styles, and then tithed to the Imperium. They would be shipped across the galaxy, far from their homes, ensuring that no planetary governor could raise a rebellion using their own soldiers. They would fight where they were sent, alongside whoever they were assigned, under the watchful eye of the Commissariat, a new institution created to ensure loyalty, to execute traitors, to hold the line when even the line wanted to break. The Imperial Guard was born not from triumph, but from tragedy. From the understanding that humanity could not be trusted, that even the greatest could fall, and that only through vigilance and separation could the Imperium endure. And so they marched, these new soldiers, into 10,000 years of darkness. In the millennia that followed, the Guard became something vast and varied, a tapestry woven from a million worlds, each thread a different color, a different story. Let us speak of them now softly, as you might speak of old friends. Cadia. The name resonates like a war drum, steady and inevitable. Cadia stood at the mouth of the Eye of Terror, that great wound in reality where the traitor legions had fled after the heresy. For 10,000 years, Cadia stood. Its people were born into war. Children learned to field strip a lasgun before they learned to read. The planet's violet eyes, a genetic quirk from millennia of exposure to the warp's taint, became a mark of honor, a sign of someone who had looked into the abyss and refused to blink. Cadian regiments were disciplined, professional, endlessly adaptable. They could fight in any environment, employ any tactic. They were the standard by which all other Guard regiments were measured. When you imagined a Guardsman in your mind's eye, you imagined a Cadian, flak armor in muted purple, lasgun held with practiced ease, eyes that had seen too much but still held their ground. Cadia broke in the 41st millennium, torn apart by the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade. The planet cracked like a glass orb, and the Eye of Terror expanded, becoming the Great Rift. But the Cadians did not break. Their survivors scattered across the Imperium, and everywhere they went, they brought their discipline, their defiance. Cadia stands, they say, even now. Even though Cadia is gone. Catacan. Where Cadia was discipline, Catacan was survival. The death world of Catacan was a jungle nightmare, filled with predators that could swallow a man whole, plants that bled acid, and terrain that shifted and killed with casual indifference. To survive childhood on Catachan was to earn the right to wear the green bandana and red head wrap of a jungle fighter. Catachan regiments were close combat specialists, guerrilla fighters who moved through hostile terrain like ghosts. They disdained heavy armor, preferring sleeveless fatigues that allowed freedom of movement. They carried enormous knives, Catachan fangs, and their strength was legendary. A Catachan could punch through armor plating, wrestle a Genestealer, or carry wounded comrades through a swamp for miles without rest. They were also remarkably independent, chafing under strict command. Commissars learned quickly that a Catachan regiment required a light touch, or that a commissar who pushed too hard might suffer an unfortunate accident in the jungle. But when the terrain was hostile and the enemy elusive, when the war was fought in swamps and forests and urban rubble, there was no regiment more effective. Krieg. To speak of Krieg is to speak of atonement. The death corps of Krieg came from a world that had betrayed the Imperium during a civil war 5 centuries ago. The Loyalists had won, but only by unleashing atomic fire, turning their own planet into an irradiated wasteland. Now, 10 generations later, the people of Krieg still sought forgiveness through service. Krieg regiments wore heavy greatcoats and gas masks, relic uniforms from the atomic wars of their past. They specialized in siege warfare and attrition, in grinding, relentless advances through trenches and fortifications. They were volunteers, everyone, and they did not expect to survive. Death in the Emperor's service was not a tragedy to a Krieger. It was the point. It was the payment, the only currency that could balance the scales of their world's ancient sin. They spoke little. They showed no fear. They advanced into artillery fire without hesitation, filled trenches with their bodies to allow their comrades to cross, and held positions long after any reasonable commander would have ordered a retreat. Some called them fanatics, others called them the Imperium's truest soldiers. Perhaps both were right. Vostroyan Firstborn. Vostroya had also sinned, though its sin was different. During the Horus Heresy, Vostroya had held back its regiments, refusing the Emperor's call for aid, focusing instead on maintaining its forges. The guilt of that refusal had endured for 10 millennia, and now Vostroya paid its debt with the firstborn child of every family, teethed to the Guard. Vostrovan regiments were equipped with the finest weapons their forges could produce. Their lasguns were ornate, engraved with family crests and prayers. They wore long red coats and fur hats, a style harking back to ancient Terran armies. They were formal, proud, honorable to a fault. A Vostroyan firstborn carried his family's name into battle, and to die well was to redeem not just himself but his entire lineage. They excelled in ranged combat and mechanized warfare, and their regimental traditions were rich with ceremony. Before battle, they would recite the names of their ancestors. After victory, they would sing songs in old Vostroyan dialects, ballads about heroes and homecomings and debts repaid. Armageddon Steel Legion. Armageddon was a hive world and a battlefield, a place where war never truly ended. The Steel Legion were mechanized infantry, born in the shadow of orbital bombardments and Ork invasions. They wore environment suits and rebreathers, necessary on a world where the air itself was often toxic, and fought from chimera transports, never static, always moving. Speed and firepower, maneuver and combined arms. They had fought the Orks of warlord Gazkul Thraka, holding the Hives against impossible odds. They had learned to fight in the tight confines of Hive Cities, through manufactorums and waste recycling plants and habstack warrens. And they had learned that you could not afford to stop. To stop was to die. A Steel Legion trooper was pragmatic, often grim, with little room for sentiment. The war was the war. You did your part, trusted your squad, maintained your equipment, and hoped the next shell didn't have your name on it. Valhallan Ice Warriors. Valhallan regiments came from a frozen death world, and they brought the cold with them. Clad in heavy fur coats and oshankas, armed with lasguns and flamethrowers, the Valhallans specialized in cold weather warfare and defensive operations. They were stoic, patient, willing to endure conditions that would break other regiments. They could sit in a frozen trench for weeks, waiting for the enemy, and when the enemy came, they would meet them with disciplined fire and stubborn courage. Valhallans were also known for their female soldiers, who served alongside men without distinction, a cultural norm from their frozen homeworld. They drank heavily, told long stories around fires, and mourned their dead with quiet songs. But when the battle came, they fought with the cold efficiency of their world, unyielding, relentless, implacable as glaciers. And these are only a few. There are so many more. The Talarn Desert Raiders, who fought from light vehicles across endless dunes. The Mordian Iron Guard, parade ground perfect, holding the line with volley fire and bayonet charges. The Elysian drop troops, descending from the sky in waves of grav shoots and Valkyries. The Praetorian Guard, with their red coats and colonial sensibilities. The Tanith First and Only, the last survivors of a destroyed world. Each regiment a world, each world a story. Each story a thread in the vast, dark tapestry of the Imperium. Let us speak now of the tools they carried. The lasgun. The most common weapon in the Imperium, the standard issue las rifle. It is not the most powerful weapon. It is not the most advanced, but it is reliable. A lasgun can function in vacuum, underwater, in toxic atmospheres. It can be recharged from a solar cell, a power pack, or even a fire. It never jams, never rusts, and can last for centuries with basic maintenance. A lasgun's shot is a focused beam of light, invisible in air, punching through flesh and armor with a crack and a flash. It will kill an orc, drop a Genestealer, and wound even a Chaos Space Marine if you hit the joints. It will not save you from a charging Tyranid horde or a Daemon Prince. But it is what you have, and so you fire it again and again until the power pack runs dry or your hands stop working. Guardsmen love and hate their lasguns in equal measure. They curse them for their weakness against heavy armor. They thank the Emperor for them when the enemy closes and the rifle still fires. They name them sometimes, or carve tallies into the stocks, or whisper prayers before battle. Flak armor. The standard protection, layers of ablative plates over heavy cloth. It will stop shrapnel, deflect glancing blows, and absorb some of the impact from small arms fire. It will not stop a bolter round or a power weapon or a Tyranid talon, but it is better than nothing. And for most guardsmen, that is all they can ask for. Heavy weapons. In every squad there are specialists. The ones who carry the heavy bolter, the autocannon, the missile launcher, the lascannon. These are the squad's teeth, the weapons that can punch through armor, bring down light vehicles, suppress enemy positions. The heavy bolter, spitting mass reactive shells at a terrifying rate. The autocannon, a middle ground between volume and penetration. The missile launcher, versatile, able to switch between anti-infantry and anti-armor warheads. The lascannon, the most powerful man-portable anti-tank weapon in the Imperium, capable of melting through tank armor with a single shot. These weapons are heavy, difficult to carry, prone to overheating or jamming under sustained fire. But they are necessary, because while a lasgun can kill a man, it takes a lascannon to stop a tank. Tanks. The Leman Russ, named after the Primarch of the Space Wolves, is the Imperium's main battle tank. It is a squat, brutal machine, with armor thick enough to shrug off most small arms fire, and a main cannon that can destroy bunkers, enemy tanks, or entire squads with a single shell. There are many variants. The Leman Russ battle tank with its battle cannon, the Demolisher with its siege cannon for close support, the Executioner with its plasma cannon, the Vanquisher with its long-barreled anti-tank gun. Each variant serves a purpose, and together they form the armored fist of the Imperial Guard. To crew a Leman Russ is to live inside a metal box, surrounded by ammunition and fuel, knowing that a single penetrating hit could turn your home into your tomb. But it is also to have power, to feel the tank's engine rumble beneath you, to see the enemy scatter before your advance, to know that you are not just a man with a lasgun, but a weapon of war. Other tanks fill the ranks. The Chimera, the most common armored transport, carrying squads into battle. The Basilisk, a self-propelled artillery piece, raining death from miles away. The Baneblade, a super-heavy tank so massive it can carry dozens of soldiers and enough firepower to level a city block. Aircraft. The Valkyrie, the workhorse of Imperial Guard aviation, is a vertical takeoff gunship and transport. It carries squads to hot drop zones, provides close air support, and evacuates the wounded. Its pilots are skilled, often reckless, navigating through flak and enemy fire to deliver their cargo. The Thunderbolt, a heavy fighter, controls the skies, engaging enemy aircraft and providing ground attack support. The Marauder, a bomber, carries ordnance to enemy fortifications and rear lines. To fly in the Imperial Guard is to live fast. Aircraft are targets, and the sky is rarely safe. But when the ground troops call for support, when the enemy is closing and all hope seems lost, the roar of engines overhead can feel like the voice of salvation. But beneath all the equipment, the tactics, the grand strategies, are human beings. Let us remember them now. Private Mikkel Tornin sat in the trench, rain dripping from the brim of his helmet, pooling in the mud at his feet. The bombardment had stopped an hour ago, leaving a ringing silence broken only by the occasional groan of the wounded and the distant rumble of artillery. He had paper, somehow still dry, folded in his jacket pocket, and a pencil, stub-worn but functional. He smoothed the paper against his knee and began to write. Dear Mama, I hope this letter finds you. I know the last 3 didn't make it through. Sergeant Cole told me the supply ship was destroyed in transit. But I keep writing anyway, because it feels like talking to you, and that helps. We've been on Jerulus Prime for 8 months now. I don't think I told you the name before. It's a gray place, all ash and shattered cities. We're fighting greenskins, orcs they call them. They're bigger than the stories said and louder, and they don't stop coming. I saw a man die today. Corporal Venn. You would have liked him. He told jokes, bad ones, but they made us laugh. An orc shell hit his squad's position. There wasn't much left to bury. I'm still alive, though. I want you to know that. I'm still here. I think about home a lot. About the farm, and the way the sun looks coming through the kitchen window in the morning, and the bread you used to bake on 7th day. I think about those things, and it helps. Tell Papa I'm doing my duty. Tell Nella I'm sorry I missed her wedding. Tell everyone I love them. I don't know when I'll be home. Maybe soon. Maybe never. But I'm still here, Mama. I'm still fighting. Your son, Mikel. He folded the letter carefully and handed it to the regimental clerk, who promised to put it in the next transport. Mikel didn't believe him, but he nodded anyway. 3 days later, an Orc offensive overran the trench. Private Mikel Tornin died holding the line, last gun firing until the power pack went dry. The letter made it home 6 months later. Commissar Aliena Rostova found the letter in the dead man's pocket after the battle. It was her duty to inspect the fallen, to ensure no sensitive information was compromised, to catalog the dead. She opened the letter without thinking, read it by the light of her lumen, and then stood very still for a long moment. She thought about the boy, because he had been a boy, really, barely 20 standard, and about the mother who would receive this letter. She thought about the duty she owed to the Imperium, to the Emperor, to the Guard. She thought about the executions she had ordered, the men and women she had shot for cowardice or insubordination or failure, each one necessary, each one another weight on her soul. She folded the letter carefully and put it in her own jacket. That night, in her quarters, she wrote an addendum, just a few lines. Your son died bravely in service to the Emperor. His sacrifice saved his comrades. You should be proud. It was a lie. Private Tornin had died in a chaotic rout, and his body had been found in the mud. But it was a kind lie, and sometimes kindness was all you could offer. She sealed the letter and sent it with her personal authorization. Then she sat in the dark and thought about all the letters she would never write, all the sons and daughters who would simply disappear into the meat grinder of war, unmourned except by the people who loved them. Medic Sergeant Tomas Hask did not carry a lasgun. He carried bandages, synth skin, counterseptics, blood clotter, and a surgical kit that had been old when his grandfather served. He carried morphia, precious morphia, which could turn agony into peace for just a few hours. He carried the weight of every person he failed to save. In the field hospital, a tent, really, staked into the mud behind the front lines, he worked without stopping. The wounded came in waves, carried by stretcher teams or stumbling on their own, blood-soaked and shaking. Shrapnel wounds, las burns, amputations, sucking chest wounds, faces half melted by plasma fire. He triaged. He always triaged. Green tags for the ones who would live. Red tags for the ones who might live if they got surgery soon. Black tags for the ones who wouldn't live, no matter what. He hated the black tags. Please, whispered a soldier on the table in front of him. Young, maybe 19, gut shot and bleeding out internally. Please, I don't want to die. Tomas took the soldier's hand. You're not going to die, he lied. You're going to be fine. We're taking care of you. He gave the morphia, enough to help. Too much would draw questions from the supply officer, and he needed to save it for the ones he could actually help. The soldier's breathing slowed, eased. The pain left their face. They squeezed Tomas's hand once, weakly. Thank you, they whispered. They died 3 minutes later. Tomas moved to the next patient. The galaxy is not kind in these latter days. The Great Rift has torn reality in half, splitting the Imperium into Imperium Nihilus and Imperium Sanctus. Warp travel is more dangerous than ever. Worlds go silent, cut off from help, and when contact is re-established, sometimes there is nothing left but corpses and ruins. The Tyranids advance, consuming everything in their path, learning from every battle. The Orks multiply across 1,000 war zones. The forces of chaos spill from the Eye of Terror and the Great Rift, corrupting and killing and laughing at the futility of resistance. The Necrons wake from their tombs, ancient and terrible. The Tau expand, offering the greater good as an alternative to the Imperium's grim darkness. And the Astra Militarum stands against all of it. 10 million worlds, countless billions of soldiers, regiments beyond counting, dying in wars no one will remember, on planets no one has heard of, for causes that are both essential and ultimately futile. Because the Imperium is not winning, it is enduring. It is holding the line, day by day, battle by battle, life by life. The Guard does not expect victory. It expects to fight until there is nothing left to fight with, and then to fight a little longer. When Cadia fell, when the planet cracked, and the pylons failed, and the Eye of Terror expanded, the surviving Cadians scattered across the Imperium. They brought their discipline with them, their doctrine, their refusal to yield. Cadia stands, they say. It has become a litany, a prayer, a refusal to accept defeat. Cadia the planet is gone, but Cadia the idea remains. Wherever a guardsman holds the line against impossible odds, Cadia stands. Wherever ordinary humans face down the darkness and refuse to break, Cadia stands on Vigilis, a crucial hive world at the mouth of the Nachmund Gauntlet. The Guard fought for years in a grinding war against Orks, Genestealer cults, and chaos incursions. The world did not fall. Not because it was strong enough, but because the people who defended it refused to let it fall. Guardsmen from 100 regiments held the line in the hive spires, in the wastes, in the manufactorums. They died by the millions, and still they held. Because that is what the Guard does. When Robout Guilliman, the returned Primarch, launched the Indomitus Crusade to stabilize the Imperium, the Guard marched with him. New regiments were raised, old regiments reinforced, and a wave of reconquest swept across the stars. It did not solve everything. It could not. The galaxy is too vast, the enemies too many. But it bought time, reclaimed worlds, and reminded the Imperium that even in the darkest hour, resistance was possible. This is the truth of the Astra Militarum. There is no end to the war. A guardsman's life is measured in battles, not years. He will fight on worlds he cannot pronounce, for objectives he does not understand, under officers he will never meet. He will stand in trenches and bunkers and rubble, and he will fire his last gun at enemies that want to kill him, corrupt him, or devour him. He will see his friends die. He will write letters home that may never arrive. He will pray to the Emperor, or to the memory of home, or to nothing at all, because prayer is all he has left. And if he is very, very lucky, he will die quickly. But even if he is not lucky, even if he suffers and bleeds and breaks, he will have done his duty. He will have held the line. And in the grim darkness of the far future, that is enough. It has to be enough. There is something beautiful in a terrible way about the Imperial Guard. Not the battles, not the death, but the persistence, the refusal to yield. The understanding that you are small, and the galaxy is vast, and your life means almost nothing in the grand scheme, and yet you still stand. There is beauty in the way a squad moves together, trust built over 100 firefights, in the way a medic works through exhaustion to save one more life, in the way a tank crew sings an old song as they roll into battle, in the way a commissar reads a letter from a fallen soldier and writes a kind lie to a grieving mother. There is beauty in the ordinary humanity of people who are not superhumans, who do not have ceramite armor or gene-forged strength or centuries of life. They have lasguns and flak armor and courage that must be summoned anew every single day. They are afraid. They are tired. They are far from home. And they fight anyway. The Emperor watches from the Golden Throne, or perhaps does not watch, trapped in a timeless agony that may or may not still hold a shred of consciousness. The Imperium endures, or perhaps decays, grinding slowly toward an ending no one can predict. But the Guard marches on. Across 1,000,000 worlds, in 10,000 war zones, in battles that will never be recorded and wars that will never end, they march. They dig trenches and clean their weapons and write letters and say prayers and stand when the enemy comes. They are not heroes. Or perhaps they are the only heroes that matter. Not the legends, not the demigods, but the ordinary people who hold the line because someone must, and so we remember them. Not with monuments, for monuments fall. Not with songs, for songs are forgotten. But with this: before the stars learned our names, men already carried lasguns into the dark,